Oneohtrix Point Never, sometimes known as OPN, is a working name for a guy called Daniel Lopatin, who's an experimental electronic music producer from Massachusetts. He's particularly known for experimental reinterpretations of various genres. His first album was released in 2007, and he has released 8 more since. Hi, my name is Dan. So most of the videos on this channel are reviews of a list of albums, which is found at acclaimedmusic.com, which is of, according to them, the 3,000 greatest albums of all time. But occasionally I step off that list, go off-piste, as I call it, and this is one of those occasions. And on this occasion, I'm going to do a review of a new release. So this is the album Again by Oneohtrix Point Never, which was released about 3 weeks ago as I record this. Excuse me. So a little bit of history, not of this album particularly, but of my history with Oneohtrix Point Never, which is that just over a year ago, I reviewed one of his albums, R+7, which was on the list that I'm working from. And I got a ridiculous number of hits on that review because, as I found out after the fact, the Oneohtrix Point Never, Daniel Lopatin, had mentioned my channel in the Irish Times website when he'd been interviewed, and apparently he'd been watching my videos and described it as being down a rabbit hole. So I have no idea if you're still watching, Daniel. Hi, if you are. I greatly appreciated the nod, and is still my most viewed video on the channel at 1.3k hits. So, right, let's get into this album then. Daniel Lopatin describes this album as being a speculative autobiography, and there's some other things that have come through from some of the reviews. So one said, music that sounds like it's always in the process of becoming. Another one says, Lopatin captures the numbing clutter and violent emptiness of volatile emptiness of post-digital, post-humanistic life, the silence that chokes, the clamour that drowns. And this is all very poetic and interesting, but I think what I want to tackle in this review isn't so much those sorts of thoughts, but what does it sound like, and is it any good? So here we go. I do have a problem though describing it. I do understand why other reviewers have gone on in these sorts of terms about it, because it's quite a hard album to describe, I found, and actually quite a hard album to absorb and to feel like you got some understanding of it. So it's an electronic mishmash of many different things in here. The things that kind of stuck out to me, and it hits you at the start of the first track, is that there's authentic sounding orchestral sounds like strings and woodwinds and things like that. Either they're very well sampled, or he has actually done some recording with some real instruments. I don't actually have that information. But alongside this, there's also more kind of normal, if that's the right word, electronic stuff. So synths, there's glitchy stuff, there's noise, there's voices, there's even snatches of singing. There's all sorts of different sounds going on here. And then on top of that, all sorts of effects, which includes detuning and microtune and things like that to take the shift of the tuning off balance. It's not beaty, dancey electronic stuff. There are beats at times, but mostly it's not that kind of thing. And there is just a wide range of things going on here. It verges from classical and feels to, I mean, it starts by feeling like a minimalist contemporary classical piece, moves into more kind of standard harmonic still with the classical sound. There's feeling of minimalism, as I say, at times, despite the fact that other times there's lots going on. There's noise, there's things that, there's bits where you would be hard pressed to call it having musical tones. There's things like ambience. At times it reminded me of microsampling, where there's lots of very short bursts of samples going on, and so everything in between in that range, and also off to the sides. And so, as I say, I'm not surprised that critics are waxing lyrical rather than trying to describe, because I am finding it difficult. In fact, I would say that an interesting thing about it was that I ended up listening 4 times. So normally when I listen to an album for reviews, I listen twice. I usually find that that's enough. Sometimes that's ample. Very occasionally, if I really dislike something or it's very, very long, I only listen once. And I felt like I responded differently pretty much every time I listened to it, which is why still after 4 listens, I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. So the first time I listened, my kind of overriding thought was that it's very busy, a lot of stuff going on. The second time I listened, and I have no idea quite how this happened, I felt like it was mellow and I found it quite relaxing. The third time I listened, I heard more of the detuning stuff, and I found the whole thing slightly unnerving. And then the fourth time I listened probably doesn't count as much, because I found it was a good way to block out the sound of construction work going on outside my window in my office. It's intricate, it's detailed. For a long time, I have realised that there are no lengths to which a producer will not go to in order to get a sound that they like. And I particularly noticed this with Godley and Cream recordings from the 70s and the 80s. But I think that this is true here as well. There's a huge amount of work has gone into this to make a thing that overlays lots of different stuff on top of itself. It gave me the feeling of a thing called a palimpsest. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but where you've got writing on a piece of parchment or a piece of paper, and then you've got more writing laid on top of that, sometimes in a different direction, and possibly even more writing on top of that, and it's just complex stuff going on. And another kind of random thought that I had was it's a bit like in speed miniature, like what I'm doing, trying to go through the list of 3,000 albums. It's just got so much going on. It's dense. But overall, how did I find it? Well, I liked it and I enjoyed it. And I still, after 4 listens, I feel like I'm only just scratching the surface. I feel like it's an album you could come back to over and over again and get something different out of it every time. Or certainly I have done that. So it's good, I think. And I'd love to know what you think. So if you haven't heard it yet, it's not been out long, I encourage you to have a listen. If you already have been having a listen, then please let me know what you think about the album. I read all comments and I'm very interested in finding out what people think. So that's it from me for now.